Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the last edition of Viewpoint on DBS Television. Wow, kind of happy to be part of you, given that the weekend is meant to rest, and I hope that you back at home, you as well relaxed to watch us for about 26 minutes of the debate. We are going to be talking about Parents Teachers Association in relation to fee payment in schools, in government schools in particular. And to talk about this, we are having with us a teacher with us here in the studio. That is Akum Ntip. He is a teacher from the Government Bilingual High School, Nyala, and he'll be accompanied by Mange Fenashus. Sir, good evening and thank you very much for being part of us.
Yeah, good evening.
Mange Fenashus, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to viewers at this Friday. You know, like you said, when it comes to Friday, you feel some kind of relaxed mode, because at least we have been able to carry through.
Having some good rest.
In fact, we've been able to carry through the week, and coming to Friday, I think that we need to be thankful that at least we would relax. But then, permit me to greet.
Go ahead. Yes,
I'm thinking of to greet the people in Kumbu. You know, Kumbu, the fund of Mso, has been making news since yesterday, and we believe that everything moved on normally, that everything is right, that he goes back to his palace peacefully, and take from where
And we are happy that one of the religious head of the country, Kazina Tumi,
was equally released. Yes, so we think that things should also follow that trend in this crisis and let it come back to the normal situation. Let us have the normal northwest, the normal southwest that we had before this crisis, Vanessa, because when you talk of northwest and southwest now, at one point, if you are not careful, you are ashamed, because you think of your village, you can't even go to the village again. You cannot go to the village as freely as you would have loved to, or as you used to do before 2016. So I think that in as much as things are unfolding in this case, they should also unfold in this crisis like that, and then we move out of this crisis to normal life.
Let us take a first part of Viewpoint. Is the payment of PTA fee in government schools be encouraged? Akum, yes or no?
Yes, Vanessa. Payment of Parents Teacher Association levies are supposed to be encouraged.
Are supposed to be encouraged,
yes.
To be
encouraged.
Mange Venashus, your point of view?
I share the opposite view. I think that it should not.
No. Is this another source of corruption in these schools? Akum, what do you think about that?
Absolutely, I don't think so.
He doesn't think so. No. Mange Venashus, yes or no?
I think that it is. Yes.
Yes. Let us have the debate. Once more, you are all welcome back. In the first question is the payment of PTA, that is Parents Teachers Association fee in government schools, be encouraged? Akum, as a teacher, probably you're fit to tell us that yes, it should be encouraged. Why should it be? Because at the start of this week, a lot of parents are complaining that they find themselves paying this PTA fee every year. So why should it feel like paying it every year, or why do you think it should be encouraged?
All right, the Parents Teachers Association fee or levy, it's a form of accompanying the government in its right and duty to provide the necessary human capital that is needed in Cameroon. You know, from all indication, we all know that Cameroon is a developing country, and being a developing country, we have certain limitations at the level of our human investment, and we as Cameroonians, it is our sole responsibility to accompany the state in providing the necessary schools, hospitals, because this doesn't only go with the schools, even the hospitals. because all of that falls under merit goods that citizens are entitled to. I would say that the problem with the aspect of fee should be how the process and the outcome, how is it being used? What is it being used for? That should be the problem. But at a level of citizens paying a little fee to accompany the state, to me, I think it is a necessary endeavor for all. Why? Because this is not only in Cameroon. If you look at even the industrialized countries, like take the case of Britain and America, they do have PTA. So PTA is not just a feature for small countries or developing countries. It is an aspect which involves even the big countries, the developed countries. They do also have Parents-Teachers Association, and they do also have Parent-Teacher Association levies that they do contribute. It's a form of enabling parents to participate in their own little way in the process of training of their children. With respect to the fee, I would say, though it is not exaggerated, but some schools might have been crossing the line, and we all know there are exceptions to that. And we cannot just pick one and say all are bad. So the idea behind the fee is good, but some schools, some government schools, I would say so, are exaggerating. Notwithstanding, if we look at the organization of PTA, for example, in my school, you realize that there are structures that are being that the PTA is proud of being contributing to, which means classrooms, teachers who are coming in. We are in a situation of COVID-19, and the school program has been scheduled in a way that the number of hours required per teacher has increased, and they need extra hand. Now, with the situation that we find ourselves, it is a conjunctural situation, unplanned situation, that we were not expecting things as such. The government cannot, at that moment, cannot train a teacher for a few weeks to come and add to the manpower. So you need the PTA to accompany the government. Where will those funds come from? If the association, the Parents Association is created and there is no fund to support the efforts of the government, such situations, unplanned situations like COVID-19, preventive measures, separation of classes, 24 per class, 2 sessions a day, cannot be possible, because we'll need teachers to come in, teachers from private sector to come in as a support, to train the young Cameroonians. Thank you
very much, sir. And from your point, I get that this PTA fee is very important to encourage the government with providing human capital in the education. But I equally like the fact that you raised the point that it is how some schools do manage this PTA that matters a lot. Mangevena shows you think that the payment of these levies in government schools should not be encouraged.
Of course, Vanessa, I think that it should not. We should scrape it off, because in as much as Mr. Akum is saying that he's explaining that's a necessity, we need to help the government. Yes, but then he used the word merit goods. That is what Cameroonians need, and every government should be able. That's what makes them. I called it them. That's what makes them a government, because they have that duty to provide for the educational needs of her citizens. That's what the government should do. It is like tomorrow you will tell me that my son will need to go and struggle out there, come and assist me, because no, it is my duty. That child has a right to. Each Cameroonian has a right to education. So the government should. The problem is not as if some schools mismanage the fund or mishandle the fund that we should. No, the problem is when it comes to a point where a student is sent out of school because the child did not pay PTA fee it becomes a problem. When it comes to a situation where a child does not gain admission into a school because of PTA, it becomes a problem. That PTA becomes, you know, a stepping stone into something else. It is no longer, from its explanation, the subjective. Right? We should assist the government, is true. But then, when they use it now as another, because I know of parents who can't afford to send their children to school. I mean, government schools because of PTA. I know of parents who, or principals who have refused to admit students because they are not paid PTA. In that context, how do we call it again? Merit goods. In that context, how do we call it again? Assisting the government. Now, when we look at the way things move on in this country, we have schools, government schools, that are created not because they are a necessity, they are created for political compensation. When schools are created for political compensations, it becomes a problem to staff the school. But then, if a government has to sign and create a government school in this area, it means the population in this area is already becoming too much that they need to, you know, to reduce the distance children have to trek, or children are supposed to trek to get to the next school. And when it is coming here, it is not that we don't have a government that is just operating in, you know, without they need to take, before a decision is taken, we study what they call, you carry out the feasibility studies, the practicality of that project before we implement it. If we are opening a school here, where are we going to have teachers from? It should be the fact that we have teachers already. Vanessa, it is no news that we have schools in Cameroon here. I was listening to a national station, I think it was this morning, where somebody called from somewhere in the center region, in a school that is a complete school, class 1 to 6, that's a primary school, with one government teacher in that school. Can we say that the school was just created overnight? If we have class 1 to 6, it means this school must have existed for at least 5 years with one teacher. These are cases now where you find the place of PTA that is, you know, we need it because those children have to go to school. But then the government has to know that it is their responsibility, it is the responsibility of the government. They have to, when they are creating a school, Vanessa, how many children graduate from ENS? How many children graduate from, now, basic education is completely a different thing, because those who go into teacher training colleges in Cameroon, upon graduation, you don't automatically gain admission into a public into civil service. But then we have so many of them who are trained, grade 1 teachers. Why can the government not absorb them? What is the problem? Okay, should we say that the government is already out of finance?
Running out of funds.
Of course. So I think that PTA, the way it is, you know, when you look at the way it is conceived, and Vanessa, I have the impression that the price is not, or the amount is not uniform. If it is a government school, it means if I have my child in government bilingual high school Mokolo, that child is able to pay, I think last time that I followed was about 7,500, something like that. Which means the same child who is in Belabo should pay 7,500. The same who is in Akwaya should pay 7,500. The same child who is in Jakiri should pay 7,500. But you discover that maybe it depends on what they decide to pay. In that case, some Cameroonians are now suffering more than others on the same fee.
It means that
in the same country.
Some principals have taken upon themselves to.
I don't know whether it is the principal, it is the delegate, it is the ministry who decides. I don't know whether it is the parents themselves who come together and decide. So when you look at it, you put all these things together, you see that, let us scrape it off. And Vanessa, where is the free education policy that was adopted in Cameroon sometime? Because if we are able to adopt a free policy education, then it means you cannot offer free lunch if you're not able to provide for the lunch. So I think that if we were talking about a particular school fee within the reach of Cameroonians, I know we still call it the change of name, because it all has to do with paying money. But once they call it PTA, it means Parent Teachers Association Levy.
All right.
Right. Now, when they are paying it, we have the impression that the government is not, you know, respecting or taking its engagement, its responsibility of ensuring the education of Cameroonians.
Thank you very much, Mark Vinicius. Now, I will turn to Akum to like we are still investigating the claim or whatever, but we are being told that most schools, government schools now, is it a new policy for parents to register their children every year? Because I remember back in the days when you registered in Form 1, when you came in Form 2, you just had to pay your fee, but now every year you need to register your child.
Okay, before I come to answer your question, I would like to say something based on what the co-panelist just said concerning the issue of the government not being able or giving a uniform, government not being able to give a uniform amount for PTA. First of all, PTA is an association which includes the parents, the teachers together. So it is not like on the side of the government. And the management of the PTA is uniquely by parents. The principal is not even part of the management of the PTA. So the decisions taken by the PTA, it has a bureau, which the bureau is made up of the parents. The parents do the vote. The parents decide the project that they are supposed to carry on in the year. There is an auditing committee that follows up what is being done. There is only one aspect lacking, is because we, the parents, we fail in our own obligation. I would say so because, like the case in Douala, you will see that in the PTA session, out of 3,000 students, you will just find 30 parents that will come for a PTA meeting. They will cry of their numerous engagements and time. And tomorrow, when these things are not being done the way they want it to be, there is a problem. So it starts from us, the parents. We have to take it upon ourselves to organize the PTA because it is our own. It is our association. We are the ones to make it what we want it to be. Because if we now put the government to come in and manage an extra contribution, which we are contributing, I don't think the government will manage that PTA fund better than the parents can do. And if we want to say that all schools should pay a uniform levy, that uniform levy might favor some and disfavor some.
Yeah, like it might meet the demands for some schools
and will not for others. The demand for schools in Douala will not be the same like the demand for schools in Southwest, in Northwest, and in other regions. So each region has its own peculiarities, its own problems. Each school has its own individual problems. And the parents are in the best way or place to see how much they can contribute to solve those problems which the government, in its own part, is limited.
It's limited. All right, let us go now to registration.
Now, going to your question on registration, I think with the government schools, there are no registrations so far. You need just to pay your fees and the PTA. If some schools are putting registration, I think it should be a question mark.
These parents that were complaining,
yes, it should be a question mark.
Government schools and they pay registration all the time.
And most of the times, it might be the way it is being explained to the parents also might. But for the private schools, I want to say this: for the private schools, it is a common phenomenon that every year students have to pay registration. Students have to come with a ream of papers, box of chalk. I think the minister, yes, the minister should look at that, or those in charge of the sector should look at that. Seduc is there for private schools; they should see into it. Parents, it's really disturbing that you keep registering your students every year. But as concerns the government school, I don't think so. That's how it is.
All right, still to be investigated upon. In the second question, is this another source of corruption in these schools? Mangavena Shus, I'll begin with you. You think that, yes, the payment of PTA levy is a source of corruption?
Vanessa, I may be speaking from, from personal experiences, past experiences. In some areas in Cameroon, people don't try to find out what happens. In some areas, parents are not as informed as we are in Douala here. In Douala here, a parent has a right to walk up to the principal and ask the principal. In meetings, they talk. But you will need to go in villages, and you will be surprised that during PTA meetings, parents don't even ask questions. Few parents may want to. And when you have the kind of principal that is conniving with... Vanessa, I saw a school where, I prefer not to call the name, where the PTA president never had a child in that school. He's a PTA president. I saw a school where a PTA president came to school practically every morning, like a teacher. Every morning he was in school. Right up to a point, during exams, that PTA president was also invigilating. And then you come to a point where they come for a PTA meeting, and those who could talk, when you want to talk, the PTA president who chairs the meeting does not even give you the floor. And then they will tell you that, I'm talking of back in the villages where they construct a 2-room toilet with sun dry block, and you hear that they are talking of 750,000 francs a toilet. We are talking of this PTA levy as a source of corruption in schools. It is because parents don't, like Mr. Akum was saying, parents don't want to, you know, try to find out what is happening. Because if you don't go for PTA meetings, you will not even get the report that they give. Yes, because once they give that report, from there you can adjust. If they've said they constructed this classroom or this building, you can also evaluate. Parents, some of them they do construct. Some of them know the prices of things in the market. They will just simply tell you that we constructed this building for 5 million. And when you look at the building that's constructed for 5 million, you don't accept. So it is this kind of things. In town here, it may not be so pronounced, but go back to the villages. You will find that we have some PTA presidents who have been there. Maybe it's a natural mandate. They will just be there. Just be there. They come and just... And I'm saying that I've seen PTA presidents who have been there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They don't even have a child in that school.
That's cool. So
the goal of parent-teacher association, you're a parent of what? Just the fact that you have a child? Because your child was there, the child has graduated, you have refused to graduate as well. So you are still there because you know what is happening. So I think that it is high time that we go and find out how these PTA funds are managed. Mr. Akum was talking of auditing it. Who audits it? Because the principal connives with the president. Oh, it's true, the president who is supposed to, by text, by legal text, to manage that fund. But once the principal connives with the PTA president, they do what they can do. They do what they are doing. And some of us parents back in the village, when they come, they speak English. How many parents will even understand the kind of grammar that they go there and read? And once they read all those figures, 500 and something, and they confuse the parents, and you end up not even knowing how much the amount was. At the end, they tell you that the 4 million that was contributed has been used. Vanessa, another issue has been what they have been calling computer fee. Well, that should be another issue altogether that we need to talk about here.
We'll talk it sometime later on.
Because when I look at the way the PTA manage all this, because it's still PTA, when the PTA manage all this thing, they call it computer fee. They took a computer lab that you don't even see a lab. You look at the machines that are there, maybe old
Thank you very much, Mangavenashus, for your point of view.
Okay,
I will turn to you, sir. You think that it is a no breeding ground for corruption, these PTA fees?
Yes, Vanessa. Just as I said earlier, the idea of PTA is it is free from corruption because it is managed by the parents themselves. So parents cannot exploit themselves unless the case where there are some exceptions. You know, there are always exceptions. Like he said, he has quoted cases. It is very normal. We have thousands of schools in Cameroon, but I think there are some schools that manage the PTA budget very well, and I will attest with you that these PTA funds have been very helpful in Cameroon, very helpful. And even some, not only the government schools, some lay private, some conventional schools like the Mission, they too are also incorporating this idea of PTA into their organization. This is to tell you that it is not only an issue of government schools, and it helps really. We should not only look at the little weaknesses. I think the the benefits that we derived from PTA funds in schools is more than the little weaknesses that might come in the form of corruption. Corruption is, I would say, is a vice that is a common feature in developing countries. It's common with countries like Cameroon. It's common. So it's not. It's some sort of a common problem, which we always have, like we have in our associations, even in the churches. Is there no corruption? So I think I cannot deny that there are no corruptions. It can be, but I will look at it that the benefits are far greater than the exceptional cases.
All right, thank you very much. In the first point, you were talking of the fact that parents are reluctant to come for these PTA meetings, and it is only their presence that can justify, or they can be able to investigate how the funds are being used. So what will you tell parents watching us, those that are reluctant to go in for these PTA meetings? What do you tell them?
Okay, this is an advice to us all, the parents. It is our sole responsibility to contribute to our children's education in the house, in the school, and also to know how the management of the school runs. If we don't participate in the major way, in our own little way, it becomes a problem, because we allow the pedagogic side to the teachers, and the only way through which we can follow up and see truly if that pedagogic aspect is being done as required is through the PTA. I want to encourage each and every parent that when it concerns our children, you should put other things aside and come for PTA meetings, be part of it, put your time in it, invest. It is part of contributing to your children's education.
Thank you very much, Akumti, for coming. It has been a pleasure. And I'll tell that I'm going back with a lot of things in mind.
Thank you.
Hope to have you next time.
All right. Pleasure is mine.
Manga Vanessa, so wish you a happy weekend, and hope to see you again on Monday.
We pray so, Vanessa, and same to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your kind and keen attention for this week's edition. It has been not a difficult task, but luckily enough, we have gone through. So stay tuned to DBS Television and do enjoy programs that are coming up over the weekend. Goodbye.